Good morning, Judge.
Morning, Mr. Bridge. Just a minute, let me look at the screen here. How are you doing today?
Glad yourself.
It's good, good. Mr. Taylor, is that you in the screen?
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yours is very faint. I think you might need to get closer to your mic or
Let me see if
some
I
type
can.
of adjustment.
The microphone.
Speak, let me see.
Let me see if I can adjust. I tested the
Mr. Zimprich, is it real light volume?
Yes, yes.
one moment, please. Somehow I minimized the video. I thought I had this done. I apologize. Can you hear me now? Is that better?
I can, but it takes some. Let's proceed. We'll see if
I
we.
have a headphone. I had a headphone. If you'd like me to use that, I can try and use that. I don't know. It might look a little strange, but it might be easier for you to hear.
Can you hear us all right?
I can hear you.
Is that better?
Oh, much better. 1,000 times better.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Zimprich, you had this is a motion to compel.
Yes, Your Honor. If you would allow me to share my screen.
Sure. Let me get to that. Second. You should be able to now.
Okay. Okay. These are the questions that were approved by the court. Interrogatory number 1, 2, there's 25 questions. What Mr. Taylor did in his responses is he identified interrogatory number 1, but identified each subpart as a different question. And then once he got to number 25, he discontinued responding, objecting under Rule of Civil Procedure 190.3B3, which is the 25 interrogatories under level 2 discovery. So he failed to respond to 22 of the interrogatories, which, started going into his income, rental property, vehicles, and everything like this such. He did state that his income was an average 36,000. He's making about 1,700 right now, but then we don't have any answers to any of the additional questions. Additionally, I've repeatedly asked Mr. Taylor to produce his bank statements because that's part of the production that we requested. He's objected, stating constitutional provisions that he does not have to produce his bank statements, that it's irrelevant, which he's a self-employed person. So the only way to truly verify his income is to see how much money he's depositing in the bank. Since he did not respond to interrogatory number 6, he did not give us any information on what checking, stock accounts, or anything of the like that he has. So we're just asking that he be compelled. These were propounded on him on January 26th. So we're going on 2 months now of his ability to live in the property without responding adequately and properly. We're asking for a very short window of time for him to give us the data so that if we determine that he does actually, in fact, have enough money to pay the rent, we can have a CDC contest hearing set up. Unless Your Honor is willing to go off of the 36,000 that he's stating that he's making, I don't have the exact rental amount. I can look that up, but I think it's $1,000 a month, or Mr. Taylor could attest to the rent that he had.
It's and just a couple of corrections. My prior income was 36 or more. As we discussed, my unemployment income for 2020 was around 20,000. So it's a pretty substantial difference. The rent for Mariposa is $1,300 a month. And Your Honor, I don't know how this typically works, but one of the reasons I objected as well, and I put it in an opposition, is that Mr. Zimprick repeatedly asked for financial documents for the previous 2 years. So my bank statements from January to 2019, I don't see that that they're relevant and or that that his clients have the right to sort of peruse my my life. They contain things that regard to my minor daughter, her medical treatments, and they contain attorney client information that I don't believe that they should have access to.
Bank statements?
Yes, sir.
January 1, 2020, I think is what we're looking for.
Well, in several of the cases,
And 2020. So we're specifically asking for documents for the 2020 year.
Well, it also says, and I apologize, I mean to interrupt. It also says for the previous 2 years on your request for production, which, I mean, if you're giving it to me in, at the end of January in 21, I'm assuming that means all the way back to 19. And then, honestly, I wasn't even late on the rent until June of 2020. Obviously, the CDC didn't go into effect until September. So I'm not even sure how my bank statements from January of 2020 are relevant. Again, they do contain items that I think would be protected. And
protected. Why?
Well, attorney payments to my attorneys, payments for my daughter's medical treatments.
Is there an attorney representing you in this?
No, sir. No,
So
I had, well, and Mr. I've already discussed with Mr. Zimprick, I did have a bankruptcy, and I do have another, well, it's a custody case. So my payments to both.
It would show a payment to an attorney, but nothing more than the payment amount, right?
Yes, sir. No, I think that's probably correct.
Okay.
And Your Honor, I did provide him with unemployment. So I am definitely unemployed. I did receive the stimulus check, and I think some of the questions, honestly, I didn't even know there was a motor number on a car. I had to Google what is a motor number, but I'm not sure how that's.
VIN number?
No, not a VIN, a motor number. Like the VIN number and the motor number were separate questions. It's in one of his interrogatories, I think maybe number 3 or number 4. And it did seem to me that there were a lot of questions that just seemed to, not have any bearing or relevance, and maybe were designed to intimidate me because I'm not an attorney and I'm not accustomed to this sort of thing.
Mr. Taylor, if
Yes,
there's a specific interrogatory or specific request for production that you object to, we could take that up, but I'm not going to do a generalized thing that these are overbroad and just not answer any of them or not answer any over past number 6. So if you want to take up one specific one, I'll be happy to look at it.
Okay, so obviously any items really relating to my car seem.
Well, you tell me what the number is, and we'll take a look at it.
All right. Let's see. I apologize. I wasn't anticipating that. It's really interrogatory number 5. If you look at subpart number D and then E, it is the current and past license plate numbers. The motor number, any additional serial numbers.
One second, Mr.
Okay.
Is there a way to get your screen bigger? I mean, your shared screen bigger for some reason, because it's real small on my end. I don't know. Hard time reading. I don't know if there's any way to do that.
Is that better?
Oh yeah. Okay. Okay. So this is number 5. So your objection is to what?
Well, really the really number E, or I guess letter E, which is the motor number.
E? Okay. Strike that. Strike E.
Okay. And then
Serial number, strike F. We'll strike F.
present or usual location.
Yes.
I mean, it's
Strike G.
Estimated current, physical location of the title, I have no idea. Like, so
Okay.
a lot of the,
Strike I.
okay. And then
H is all right.
the current estimated retail value. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I can probably
Yeah,
look
you
it
can
up on the book.
guesstimate. So,
Okay.
so an I we can strike.
Okay. And then, Your Honor, moving to interrogatory number 6.
If you can strike I.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm impressed with your computer savvy.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Taylor.
Okay, so, and I may have to go back, but definitely number 6, interrogatory number 6. It says this interrogatory covers the past 2 years. I mean, this is again, talking about dates that are not really relevant to.
I think 2 years is a reasonable amount of time. I'm going to go ahead and allow that. Let's go to your next one.
Okay, so let's see. Okay, so number 7, I can just answer. I don't own any collections. I don't have any.
No, you have to respond to it, not.
Okay,
not
okay,
steer over
okay. I understand. Okay, let's see. No, I don't have any issue with number 8. Number 9, title, personal property, household effects. I mean, number 9, do I have anything that's worth more than $500? I mean, I guess I'm not sure what. I'm relatively sure my, if I have a TV or a computer, I don't think I can be forced to sell a computer or something.
We'll strike number 9 in whole.
Okay.
And Mr. Zippert, you can respond if anytime you object to it.
Oh.
Okay. And then, do you have any ownership and an interest in any business for the past 2 years? Again, really, it's just a matter of it being kind of further back than what.
I'm all right with that.
Okay. And then let's see. State any gross compensation you received from all employment or business activities for the calendar year ending in December. Again, I think number 14. I'm sorry, Your Honor. I'm sorry. Number 14.
14. Okay.
And with this one, he's calling for the calendar year. And again, my opposition, I guess, or I'm not sure how to call it, is that I wasn't even late on my rent until June.
This is to show that there's been a great disparity between your earnings from one year to the next. So I'm all right with that.
Okay, but that's for 2020. That's
okay. The year prior to the pandemic.
Okay. All right. And then their source in the calendar year. Source of money. Okay. I think I'm okay. Any attempts, I'm okay with that. I don't have any. I think I've already provided in that. I didn't really take any issue to a lot of these. It just seemed that so many of the beginning questions were unnecessary and really didn't even pertain to this. State the amount. I don't have any issue with that. Claim you're unable to pay the loss of work hours. State the facts that resulted in the loss of work hours. I guess I can try that. Number 24. I kind of take. He's basically asking, and I'm not sure what the total income collected. I'm not sure what he means by income. Like if it's just like the unemployment, and then total expenses paid. Am I supposed to just itemize like my entire? If we had. If we had, I don't know, like whatever expense it is, or does that include my attorney fees, or is that? I'm not sure what that included. It seemed. It's a table. I don't know if you can. There it is. Yes, you can see it. He's basically asking, total income. Is that unemployment? Is that, if
I would say it's anything that you have access to, total income.
Could we change it to total funds or total money received in each month?
Well,
basically any money from any sources that you received during those months. You know, I'm trying to determine whether you have the ability to pay your rent. So if you got money from many sources, gifts, unemployment, you know, that total funds received in each month.
So
Resources, total resources, or yeah, I mean, what it is any income that you have coming in less the expenses going out.
okay. I mean, and everything is an expense. I mean, like, so I just need to go into my bank account and, you know, I mean, groceries, everything is an expense. I need to itemize all of this. Or maybe not itemize it, but
Itemize, but you just say, I don't know,
okay.
or gasoline, insurance, you know, it could be categorized.
Okay. Okay. For all expenses claimed, then number 25, I mean, it does seem to be asking me to itemize all expenses claimed.
That's a little difficult there. Mr. Zemprich, you have any?
I think it's important to know, basically, he signed an affidavit saying that he does not have the ability to pay his rent. And if he has expenses that are let's say he's going out to eat every day and spending $1,000 a month and eating out, you know, then I think we need to be able to look at that and make sure if that's reasonable. So without knowing what he's claiming as an expense, we cannot determine if he truly has the ability to pay and is just making a choice not to pay because he's choosing to spend it on unreasonable expenses.
Your Honor, I mean, I'm a single dad, and we eat at home the majority of the time. You know, the majority of our groceries we buy from Walmart or Sam's. But you know, if I don't cook
to a few months, if that would help. But I think it's important to get an idea, let's say maybe September through December of, you know, did he go on a luxury cruise and is claiming that as an expense? Without knowing what he's actually choosing to spend his money on, for him to say, well, I can't afford it because my expenses are too high, we just can't verify that.
I mean,
By category.
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
No, I was asking, what if it was done by category? Utility, rent,
Groceries,
groceries.
like on the affidavit of indigency,
Yes,
like this.
yes. You didn't have to limit it to those categories, but it could be, you could categorize it, Mr. Taylor.
Okay.
Instead of,
It just seemed, you know, I didn't know if I was going to have to go through my bank statements, you know, line item by line item and essentially, you know, explain why I, you know, if I didn't cook one day, like, I mean, to use Mr. Zemprich's example, you know, why didn't I cook, you know, 3 meals that day? Or that sort of thing. I mean, and I definitely understand. I don't take any issue with the idea that I should not be, you know, again, to use this example, you know, going on a cruise or something while I'm not paying the plaintiffs. And I never have done anything like that. I mean, during, you know, I pointed out to Mr. and Mrs. Yang, I think back in November, when they started, October, November, when they started accepting the checks that I was sending them, you know, that at the time, I think I was getting like $200 a week from unemployment, and I was sending them, you know, checks of $300 or $400. You know, prior to that, I had sent them several checks that Mr. Zemprich and you know, returned on their behalf that they refused to accept. So, you know, it hasn't been that I've just simply refused to pay them and tried to take a free ride or something like that on you know.
I understand. Mr. Zemprich is just trying to explore that and make sure that that's not the case. I mean, other than just you just stating that.
No, I can, and that part I didn't have, honestly, Your Honor, I didn't have any issue with. You know, I just felt that, you know, Mr. Zemprich actually emailed me the other day and explained that maybe my objection to the 25 questions was maybe not, I guess, correct, legally correct. But, you know, so many of those questions in the beginning seemed just
Okay, Mr. Zimprich is proposing September 2020 through January 2021 by category. And I think that's reasonable.
Okay. All right. So in that case, all right. So that, and then if I can just have a moment to look back. I apologize. I've never
No
done
problem.
one of these, so I'm not sure. I wasn't really prepared for it to be like this, but so interrogatories, I don't have any issue with that. Okay. So okay. And then any real property, no. I don't have any issue with any of that. So let me just kind of move to, do I need to go to the request for production or,
Yes.
okay. So on number 4, I think it was really just the same thing. Any credit devices, debit devices relating back to January 1 of 2020. And again, I think my objection to that would be that, again, I wasn't late until June of 2020. So that's 6 months later. And then of course, COVID actually happened in March. And then, I didn't even file.
I think it's reasonable. I think the date's reasonable.
Okay. Any deeds, mortgage, trust? I don't have any of those, so it doesn't matter. Okay. Any documents? Any person after July 20 documents? I mean, I really don't have most of this stuff, so I don't know that. I mean, if you're okay with the dates, that was really my primary issue. I suppose my only concern was kind of a little bit of what Mr. Zimprich mentioned, which is, I don't know that, we haven't done anything like take any extravagant cruises or anything like that. I haven't bought anything, but at the same time, I don't know that I feel like it's the right or privilege of his clients, especially when they're not accepting rental checks, to tell me that I shouldn't, have a Burger King or a Whataburger or something like that. But and the one thing that he did mention the other day, and I don't know how this would work out, but was being able to redact, payments for, or maybe at least 2 providers for my daughter and things like that. How does that work with regard to medical and attorneys? I don't know what the procedure or what kind of the standard is for that.
Your concern is that the person the payment is made to being disclosed?
Person and amount. If what if Mr. and Mrs. Yang or Mr. Zimprich don't think that my expense for some care for my daughter is appropriate?
Well, I don't think it's going to get to that point. I guess if the payment is made to somebody, I guess there might be a question arise: what is that payment for? Not knowing who it is or what it's for, and I think it would end at that point. If it was stated this is for a doctor for my daughter, I don't think it goes any farther than that.
Okay. And just, and part of my concern, I mean, this is not public record or anything like that, is it? I mean, this isn't, or is it?
The responses aren't. They could be, if it's relevant to the proceedings, it could be introduced in evidence. But the JP court is not a court of record, so there's no formal record kept. So the responses aren't going to be filed of record. So other than it being mentioned in the hearing before me, no, it's not a public record.
Okay, thank you. I have something else pending and I didn't want it to become, that was part of my concern as well.
Well, it is, let me backtrack a little bit. It is on YouTube because we have to do these live on YouTube. So I guess there is somewhat of a record of it.
Okay.
It's only if it's introduced and then I find it relevant to the proceeding.
So like, for instance, let me just, I have a custody case pending and I don't want this necessarily.
Again, it has to be relevant to these proceedings for it to be introduced.
Okay.
But I can't speculate, I can't tell you what's going to be relevant at this point right now. We just take what comes up.
Okay. I don't know if it's, well, this is just on the motion to compel, right? This is not regarding everything else. This is just whether I need to provide these documents.
Today's hearing is strictly on the motion to compel.
Okay. I think I did send it sounds like we've probably covered it, but I did send an opposition last week.
Yeah,
I think it's basically covered with what we talked about. Let me just
okay.
see if there's anything that I wanted to point out. I mean, I think I did mention that I had sent them several checks and stuff like that. So I think you've already heard everything that I think you would find relevant
Okay.
to this.
Let's talk about production of your answers. How much time do you need?
I mean, it's a fairly substantial amount of stuff, especially if I'm having to go through and not necessarily itemize, but categorize expenses and things like that. I didn't actually receive the initial request until probably about a week after I think the initial hearing where you guys sent it. I do have another upcoming hearing pending in that other case that I mentioned. So as much time as you feel is acceptable and reasonable, Your Honor.
Your Honor, if I may ask a question and just to address the payments, prior to the CDC regulation, I did advise my clients not to accept payments as it could affect the eviction, but with the CDC regulation, it requires the tenant to make the payments. So at that point, I did advise them to take the payments under that ruling. Mr. Taylor, you were coming up with another month. Do you anticipate that you're going to be able to make a payment? And if so, how much, just because of the time that this is taking?
Yeah, I've been trying to send him, anywhere from 25 to 35% of what I have coming in. So that's typically around, like right now, that's about $500. I don't know if I can scrape together a little bit more for this month. You and I have spoken, I have applied for the TRRP program. And I've been calling them almost daily to find out what the situation is with that. So I'm trying to get that taken care of as well.
Would you be able to, maybe we could do 3 weeks if you could make a payment of $750?
If we could do a month, I would find a way to do 750. It'd just be simply because I do have another very pressing I don't know how to, just another, the other hearing that is going to require so much of my attention. And I don't, and quite frankly, I'd like to get back to work, but.
You said it was $1,300 a month is what?
Yes, sir.
So it's approximately $43 a day. I was just trying to make it approximately equivalent to the rent. So if you did $750, the rent for 3 weeks is actually $910. If you did $750 for 3 weeks, it's still a couple $100 short, but it would still give my clients some kind of.
We're talking about 3 weeks to produce, though, right?
3 weeks to produce, yes.
Okay. So again, my other, as I said, my concern is that 7. So in approximately 2 weeks, I have another hearing that it's a big hearing, and and I'll kind of go back to your point about the CDC, Mr. Shepherd. I don't believe that Mr. and Mrs. Yang actually even accepted my checks until November.
Yeah, that's when the ruling came out and started in September. And I mean, the problem is my clients have a mortgage on the property, and every month they're making their mortgage payments so they don't lose their property. But you became default in June of 2020, and so we're almost going on a year that they've been having to pull out of their retirement account.
And I understand, but I do believe that they are also covered under the, as a federally backed mortgage as well. So because I think you mentioned that in your initial.
But it doesn't forgive those payments. They still
no, and this isn't forgiving any payments for me. It's just a matter of, and it's and to that point, Mr. Zimberg, I did speak with your client directly, Mrs. Yang, about the CARES Act before the CDC that Project Bravo was administering with them. I was told that they would accept nothing other than full payment with all late fees. I did send several checks later when I sent the CDC. Those were all returned to me until, like I said, November. And during the time, from, I think, and I don't want to get myself in trouble because I'm not looking at it, but I think, from like November, December, I was only receiving like $200 per week through TWC. And then honestly, from January, I don't think I even got a payment until February. So there's literally nothing coming in.
The
So
checks
I
that were-
definitely understand their situation, but I've tried to work with
How
them.
much in money was returned to you and what did you do with that money?
I'm sorry, what?
The checks, you said the checks that were returned to you, how much was returned to you and what did you do?
Oh my gosh. I want to say, can you give me a second while I look?
No, I mean, it's not a huge deal. I'm just
I want to say
yeah,
like $1,000, $1,500. I'm not sure. Let me see. I have it. I'm sorry. It was $900 was returned. I apologize.
Okay.
So closer to 1,000.
And do you still have that money?
Probably not. I think my account right now might honestly have about $1,000, give or take.
Would you be able to do the production in 3 weeks? Would you be able to send a check for $750?
I would like to request at least 1 month, just given the scope and given the amount of documents I need to produce. I will find a way to. I was already planning on sending him at least 500. I'll, if I have to ask for a family member or something, I'll figure that part out. But I mean, is that a compromise? Is that a fair compromise? I mean,
I don't know. I'm in a tough position with my clients. A month for them is $1,300. They're losing. That's the only.
And in fairness, Mr. Zimbrick, I mean, there is like as I told you, and I don't know, I'll be happy to like kind of put this up here.
What's the most that you think you can pay if we allow a month for the? And I don't want to, Judge Pearson, I don't want to step on your toes, and I hope you don't feel that.
If you all can come to an agreement, that's fine.
Trying to come up with
an agreement. Yeah, I mean, I do want to show. I don't know if you guys can see this. Here's like calls to TRP. So I'm in contact with them. Here's the thing. I mean, there's a good possibility that I'm being told that they had some technical issues and they were processing transfers and things like that, to new platforms. But my understanding is that I'm in a priority 1 category. So
Mr. Taylor, for 30 days, do you think you could make a payment of 1,000?
I think that would be stretching it. I mean,
what is the most do you think you can make?
I mean, again, let me just let me just look at my bank account.
And I don't have your bank statement, so I don't know what you're making every month.
Yeah, as I said, I mean, like it was unemployment. It was $200 for quite some time.
You're a realtor, right? Aren't you?
No, sir. No, I'm not a realtor. I'm trying to get back. And that was honestly, I was hoping that would get the, you know what? I'll tell you what, hopefully, well, you know what? I think the stimulus check is supposed to come. So when would I have to make that payment?
Could we say by the end of the week, by the 27th?
Well, that would be actually quite kind of tough. I mean, I could certainly, within the month, I think I could do 5 and 5. Because I think that the stimulus payment should be here, and then hopefully I would at least receive something from the TRP. And worst case scenario, I might be able to borrow it from a family member. I think that, but right now, if I were to,
we would need it by the end of the week. We can't wait for 2 payments of 500. It basically needs to be paid pretty early. So by the 20, the stimulus payment, my understanding is those are already out. I know a lot of people that have received those.
I've only received by mail, and I don't know that I'll receive one for my daughter because of the way that I did end up filing my 2020, but I don't know that I didn't get one for her the last time, and I don't know that I'll receive one this time.
So
can you give me like, rather than it being by the end of the week, because it's Tuesday now, and what could we do it by
the 31st?
31st, 8 days. I don't know. You know what? What about 750 by the end of the week and 250 the following?
I just don't want to have to deal with 2 payments.
2 payments.
Yeah.
I'm just concerned that I don't think I get another TWC. I don't know when the stimulus is going to get here. And I honestly, and obviously I haven't had a chance to speak with anybody to see, hey, can I borrow this cash?
Your Honor, I think, you know, Mr. Taylor's had a couple months for the production. He's worked on it.
You know what? Can I text my mom? Can I text somebody while I'm doing this? Like, just, you know, hey, worst case scenario, could I borrow like $500?
Sure, go ahead.
I mean,
Go ahead, Mrs. Zembrich, you're stating something?
If he needs to check on the ability to work out a settlement, I can wait for him. I was moving off the settlement and just talking about an order for production, but if he thinks.
And Mr. Zembrich, I'm sorry. You said by the 31st, right?
By the 31st.
Okay. The 31st is, let me actually look at my calendar real fast.
That's next Wednesday, a week and a day from today.
Okay. You know what? I feel like worst case, I could probably borrow like a couple $100 from my brother. So if you, look, I mean, I don't want to seem like I'm unwilling or I'm not trying to figure something out with your clients. I mean, that's not the case. I think I've demonstrated repeatedly that I'm trying to work something out with them. And you and I have discussed that, specifically. Yeah, I'll say that I'll find a way to do that by the 31st, but I need a month to try and get this stuff together.
Your Honor, what I'm thinking of doing, if it's acceptable with you, is an order that would state that Mr. Taylor has agreed to pay $1,000 in rent by the 31st, and as long as he does so, he will have 30 days to produce the discovery responses. If he does not pay the $1,000, that his responses would be due April 2nd, which would give him to the end of next week, just to have some kind of ramifications if he doesn't pay the funds. And we also asked for attorney's fees in our motion. As long as he pays $1,000, we're fine forgoing any attorney's fees for the motion. So we would ask that an award of it, if he doesn't pay the $1,000, that his responses are due April 2nd, and he pays also there's an award of $750 for attorney's fees for the motion. So essentially the two alternatives would be he pays $1,000 and has 30 days to produce. If he doesn't pay the $1,000, he has until April 2nd, and there's an award of attorney's fees, just to have some kind of teeth in the proposed or agreed order.
Mr. Taylor?
That doesn't seem unreasonable, Your Honor.
Okay. Provided that if you prepare the order, have both of you all sign off of it. Yeah, I don't have any problem with it. All right. Prepare the order, send it to Mr. Taylor, get his approval of it, and then submit it to me, and I'll sign off on it. That's no problem.
Okay. Thank you, Judge.
All right. Thank you.
Anything further? Did we cover it all?
No, Your Honor. I did have one question about you mentioned the YouTube. Is it on like a private channel or something?
No, it's open to the public.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'll just make sure I use a screen or something next time.
It's a provision of having these hearings.
I wasn't aware of it.
Yeah.
So
There's so many of them. I don't know how you search for them.
No, I don't either. I just wasn't aware. I just wouldn't want to.
I guess that's how the cat video got out, if you've seen that one.
Right.
Yeah, I did actually. I just, again, I have something else pending, and I wouldn't want my daughter to ever see this or
Right.
So
that's just a requirement since the proceedings aren't in person.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything further?
No, Your Honor.
No, that's it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all for working with each other, and you give me that order, I'll get it signed.
Thank you, Judge.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye. I'm going to end the meeting.